Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sick of This Shit Publications. I'm Nick Paro, not your dad, here for an intelligent masculinity discussion with a friend, someone I have gotten to know. And thank you also for the opportunity to go to Minneapolis and support and be a part of the veteran community that came out and got to interact with the folks in Minneapolis and be there for the Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good and everyone else Abolish ICE Live event. So thank you for that. Ken Harbaugh of the Ken Harbaugh Show, Navy pilot, veteran. Got a lot of questions for you today, and I want to know. Would love for you to introduce yourself to everyone in our audience if they don't know who you are, and then get your thoughts real quick before we get into any of our actual questions of some of the things going on and the war that's started due to this fragile masculinity that is taking root.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. Thanks for having me, Nick. It was great linking up with you in Minneapolis, and especially seeing so many veterans come out to defend the honor of Alex Preddy. That concert was literally right across the street from where they took him from us. And just thinking about what he spent his life doing, not just his last moments, but what he spent his life doing, caring for veterans as an ICU nurse, which meant he was there many times in a veteran's last moments. So it was great to have you out there. Great to have some of our influencer buddies as well. I'm Ken Harbaugh. I have a show on the Midas Touch Network in the excuse me, Nick, in the 3 a.m. hour. If you want to get it when it first comes out, obviously it is archived, so you can go to the Midas Touch Network anytime and see the Ken Harbaugh Show. But I'm former Navy pilot. Ran a couple of veteran service organizations like Team Rubicon and the Mission Continues, but have spent, oh man, it's hard to believe it, but the last 10 years trying to figure out how to help us get through this Trump era. I am first and foremost a dad, and I will never forget the morning after that 2016 election, having to go upstairs and tell my daughters what had just happened, what we had just done as a country, after having assured them during that whole campaign cycle that we would never do this. America is too good, too smart to fall for a con man like Donald Trump. But we see where we are now, and Americans are dying as a result, as you observed, of this fragile, toxic masculinity.
Thanks, Ken. It's good to have you with us, and thanks for that intro. And yeah, I want to get your thoughts on specifically around some of the quote leadership that we have, especially Pete Hegseth and some of the reporting that has come out around officers promoting a holy war and the violation of oaths and separations of church and state and our military's legacy. Could you talk on that as from your knowledge as a veteran and someone who's taken that oath, and what it, because I asked my dad, who's also a veteran, and he was like, I would have fired those fuckheads for saying that right away. But I'd love your thoughts on Pete Hegseth and these actions that are leading us into what appears to be a holy war and a new crusade, which is not what our military is for.
Well, I think this problem infects multiple domains in the American government right now. It goes back to this virulent Christian nationalism that is on the rise, that has blended with this weird masculine cosplay. And I think a great example that is all over the headlines right now is this Mark Wayne Mullen character, right? Who's going to be the head of DHS unless there's a miracle, unless John Fetterman comes to his senses or someone else does. But here's a guy who uh, who never served, who never went downrange, but talks as if he's, a SEAL Team 6 guy. He talks about the smell of war in your nostrils, and when pressed on it, like the guys at the bar every veteran has run into, mumbling to himself, trying to get attention, talks about how classified the mission was, that he can't talk
Mm,
about it because only 4 people in the U.S. government were read into it, and he's one of them.
hmm
And even the senators questioning him can't know about how super secret his missions were while he was a sitting member of the Energy and Commerce Committee. So just this inane bluster by almost always men who feel like they need to compensate for something. And I think most veterans are beginning to realize that about Pete Hegseth. Here's a deeply fragile, deeply insecure human being who literally has a makeup room next to his office in the Pentagon so that he can touch up before he goes out in front of cameras. And he sees his job. He sees his job as strutting and chest thumping in front of the cameras, not doing what's right for the American men and women downrange, bearing the burden of this stupid warrior cosplay. And he also wears this mantle of um, I would say idolatrous Christianity, because it's nothing like the Christianity I was raised on. It's a fire and brimstone, bloodlust-ridden Christianity that talks about vanquishing our enemies. And when you hear Pete Hegseth say he's going to dispense with stupid rules of engagement or give the enemy no quarter, it's not just illegal and tantamount to suggesting we commit war crimes. It's deeply antithetical to the faith he professes to hold. And I think more people need to call him out on it, especially veterans, because we all know the vet like that. We all know the lonely guy in the bar who's trying to compensate for what he's not. And Pete Hegseth checks every box. He just happens to run the Department of Defense, so he's just so much more dangerous in that role than your average loser at the bar.
yeah. And so I've been building this show so that we can push back on shit like that, on disgusting men like Pete Hegseth and Mark Wayne Mullen, who is my neighbor state's senate. Like he's gross. Like
Yeah,
Mullen he's the not the best of Oklahoma. And Oklahoma does have really good people in it. Like I know
sure.
some really great people out of Oklahoma. Wonderful state. They're misguided. They are uneducated. They are purposely led that way. And it's allowed this type of masculinity to fester on purpose. And so I know Ken's got a hard stop today at the 45. So we're going to try and stay on topic. So normally we'd meander for a little while, but we're not going to today. And this is where we can sort of like we can shift right into our questions on like the difference between men like Mark Wayne Mullen who cosplay masculinity, cosplay and do stolen valor, because that's what it is. What Mark Wayne Mullen is doing is claiming stolen valor, that he knows what war smells like because he's been there. He hasn't. He's never been. I don't even think he's ever served in the military in any capacity. He's just a cosplayer. He's a fake cowboy from Oklahoma, because cowboys aren't actually from Oklahoma. They're from Texas, or sorry, they're more from California and Texas area than Oklahoma. Sorry, Oklahoma. You guys are just the Dust Bowl. But we're going to shift into a better masculinity. And that's what intelligent masculinity is all about, is showing models for men that they can follow and finding models that are out there already that are leading the way and giving us really good examples. We've gone through men like we've gone through men like we've gone through men like Wajahat Ali, Bobby Jones, Marlon Weems, Chris Goldsmith, Evan Fields, other veterans, other non-veterans. Ken is going to add to our conversation in so many ways. And then afterwards, like always, he'll get a profile that comes out, and then he's gonna get added into the article. And into the series as a whole to help drive forward the discussion on what men are and what men are doing to make a better image of ourselves that others can follow. So first, Ken, we've got some really good questions for you. Our first four
Good.
are our more serious ones. Our last question is a four-part question, but it's less serious, more whimsical, based on the Mulan's song "I'll Make a Man Out of You." I was a choir kid growing up, and it it stuck with me. It's the clarion call. It's the "Let's Go Girls" for men and young men who are wanting a pump up song. And so I took the choir or the chorus line of it and turned it into some great questions. We've had a lot of fun with it.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So let's get into this. Everyone, as you're joining us again, please smash the heart. I'm Nick Paro, not your dad. This is Sick of This Shit Publications, and we're doing Intelligent Masculinity with Ken Harbaugh. So our first question here, Ken, this is a two-parter. And you can answer with any individuals who are historical in your life, however you want. They don't have to be a positive and they don't have to be a negative. They could be either one or somewhere in between. And I use these words specifically masculine and feminine rather than male and female because they don't have to specifically apply to a single gender. There are some really good masculine role models from feminine figures, from females. There's very good feminine role models and figures from men. And so why not be able to do both? And so here's our first question for you, Ken, is who has been one of the most influential masculine figures in your life and why?
Wow. Good question. My grandfather was a B-17 pilot, and people are complicated. Everyone's a mixed bag, right? There's good and bad with everybody, but I really looked up to that man growing up for his example of bravery, but with a humble streak. I mean, he won a Silver Star. He was awarded a Silver Star after a mission in the Pacific. He was a B-17 pilot where his bomber was ambushed by an entire squadron of Zeros, and I think every officer, maybe every member of the crew was injured. He took a 20 millimeter explosive cannon round through his thigh and still was able to limp the plane back. But he never bragged about it. There were clippings all over the House articles written about him, but you had to sort of pry it out of him. It was the kind of heroism that is real because you don't wear it on your sleeve. The only time you wear it on your chest is when you're wearing your medals for a funeral of a buddy, and it stands in such sharp contrast to the phony heroism of someone like Mark Wayne Mullen, who wears something he did not even earn on his sleeve in his hearings. He talks about it on TV, and by all accounts, was never even there. So I think that contrast was really formative for me as I thought about how I wanted to be as a man, as a grown up, and the image I wanted to project. So my grandfather looms large. Of course, he dealt with some real issues coming back from the Pacific as a severely wounded combat vet. But I think on balance, I know on balance, he was a tremendous human being and an incredible role model to me and my brother.
That's awesome. I feel unfortunate in many ways because I didn't have my grandparents for too long in my life. So I never got to experience one of my grandfathers, and my other grandfather died when I was 5, I believe. So I never got to grow up and hear and get that influence from them in those ways. And when I hear others talk about like the multi-generational impact that they've had from grandfathers and others, I feel really fortunate that my kids get to experience their grandparents on both
Yeah.
sides, and so that they can learn and maybe garner those lessons from their grandfathers or their grandmothers or even their great grandparents who are still around. And it's great to see other men learning from previous generations, especially where previous generations, the definition of masculinity was looser in previous generations. And can you tell me a little bit about how you think your grandfather maybe differed from some of the men around him, in why he gave you that influence? Because, like I said,
Hmm.
generationally, things have changed. Words were more acceptable at certain times, phrases came out of other places that we don't always know the definitions of, and other things were, we weren't as strict or as understanding in our moral ideas at times, or that's how we see the past anyways. And how is he different than some of the other men around him, that gave you a positive example to grow off of?
That's a great question. I mean, I'll tell you a little bit how he was the same as as I buy time to really answer your question. In that generation, uh, everybody was called up just about. There was a common sense of sacrifice and duty. And while not everyone gave as much as my granddad, not everyone came home full of shrapnel. People understood the sacrifices that were being asked, and that is a huge departure from society today, um, where society doesn't really appreciate the burdens shouldered by those who were asked to fight on America's behalf. In my grandfather's generation, that was different. Not that I would ever wish for a world war, but it really was a world war and an entire nation at war when it came to the U.S. The way he was different, I suppose, is that he he taught by showing, by doing. I don't remember many like long and winding conversations into the night. We just spent time together, and not a lot of words were passed. But I remember spending hours upon hours just sitting with him in the deer blind when we were out hunting in Texas. My grandfather grew up hunting to feed his family, literally, and he passed that part of his culture and his upbringing on to me. But when I shot my first deer, which I shot to feed the family, right? He made me carry it all the way back to the truck. He made me dress it myself. And I mean, he was a guide and he was a mentor, but we didn't have a relationship that was just built on intellectual or esoteric conversations. We did things together, and he showed me, I guess, that version of steady, quiet, dependable masculinity by just demonstrating it every day. He worked really, really hard to support his family.
Love it. Love that. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for sharing that with us too. Let's move on to the second half of this question, which is the opposite side of all of this, is who has been the most influential feminine figure in your life and why?
That's another great question. My mom was and is a very strong person, and demonstrated, I think, much of the same grit that my grandfather had in different ways. I remember when I was in high school, she fell off a horse, and she was way out in the wilderness and snapped her femur. That is a tough bone to break, right? Snapped her
Mhm.
femur. It was broke. It was like bent at nearly a right angle, and she set it by herself before the pain kicked in. She dragged herself into position, and with her own hands, she straightened the leg, and got help. And that's just the kind of role model that I grew up with. But I also think about my daughters who are equally brave in their own ways, and they are in their own ways role models for me as well, as someone who didn't grow up with sisters. It's been just wonderful getting to know, I probably shouldn't name them here, but getting to know my two girls and watching them grow up and seeing the incredible things that they're doing and going to go on to do. My oldest daughter just got into med school early, and
Well,
it is a total.
congratulations.
Thank you. Well, thank her. Yeah, a totally different track than I ever considered. She's her own person doing amazing things. My middle daughter was born with some serious health challenges. At one point, the doctor, well, at the very beginning of her life, the doctor said, your little girl will probably never speak normally. She needed 4 major surgeries before she was 4 years old. But now she's in musicals. And her last big one, I remember her, I might get choked up here. I remember her coming home. She was trying out for Cinderella, the musical, at the local community theater. And she came home and said, Dad, I got the part. And I said, Lizzie, what part did you get? Are you like a mouse? Are you one of the pumpkins? And she said, No, Dad. They cast me as Cinderella. So she went from a kid who the doctor said may never speak to like being the lead in a musical about a girl who transforms. What kind of dogs do you have, Nick?
I've got
I've got a
I've got 3 of them actually. That it's trash day, so they're loud today.
got it.
The
Got it.
garbage truck is out.
I've
Yeah,
got a,
I've
a
got.
German Shepherd asleep right in front of me, so I'm glad I got the
Oh,
earpods in, or they would hear
yeah,
yours, and Archie would lose it.
yeah. I've got a blue heeler mixed uh, American Staffordshire Terrier and a Golden Hound,
Awesome.
which we got for free. The Golden Hound. Apparently, he's a designer dog, and he adopted us and broke into our yard. But yeah, I get my dog bells going off quite often. I have to say that's what you were just telling about your daughters is freaking amazing. I want to I went to school for music, and I did the musicals in high school, and I was a
Mm,
choir kid, and I did music theory and composition at Carnegie Mellon, and I got to work with all the theater kids and the opera kids and the folks who were doing that kind of production, and I got to record the operas and the concerts and the events, and it's so amazing to see the life that comes and creativity that comes out of the
yeah, it
actors
really
and
is. It
actresses,
really
and
is.
it's amazing, and I love it, and I'm so glad that you get to see your daughter do some amazing things. Like, we've gotten to one of the really unique things about all of this. I know it's sidetracking us just a sec. One of the really unique things, though, about all of this is I've gotten to meet parents who have adult children who, like you now and Marlon Weems, who we get to see and hear about their adult children and this amazing successes and how proud you are and how willing to show that emotion you are. And I think that is such a wonderful change from what we're experiencing in so many other men, where they don't show pride in their kids. It's almost like they don't care about their children having success unless that success directly impacts them and betters them. Whereas you're just proud for your daughter. You're just
Yeah,
so glad that your daughter is so excited and getting to do these amazing things. And I love it. It makes
yeah,
me
totally.
it makes me happy just thinking about it. And hoping to see my daughter be able to do those amazing things as she grows up. Um, so thank you for modeling that for us all and showing us like what it does look like to be an intelligent man and someone who can show his masculinity, because it's just better humaning. And so building on this, if I were to throw at the words intelligent masculinity at you, because it's not a phrase we hear very often, um, is what does it mean to you to be intelligently masculine, and how would you define that concept? I have a working thesis, but I don't want to bias you with it until afterwards.
I don't know. Uh, Maybe it's easier to find as a contrast, as sort of an oppositional definition, because I know what masculinity is not, right? It's not acting before you think. It's not lashing out. It's not pounding your chest and talking about no quarter like Pete Hegseth. And what's astonishing to me is what a litmus test that is, or a die marker that is for the kinds of people that I want to associate with and the kinds of people I want to look up with. Just about everybody who sees Pete Hegseth do that and says, "Yeah, that's what a man should look like," is somebody I want nothing to do with. But the vast majority of people I spend time with and I'm around, they see that and instantly know something's off. They instantly see that for the charade it is. And when I'm talking about the men who have that reaction, uh, that I think is an indicator of intelligent masculinity, a thinking masculinity, a non-performative but substantive masculinity that considers before it acts, that has as its foundational principle defending the weakest among us, and not beating up on the weakest among us. Another great oppositional definition would be the ICE agents who get off on dragging defenseless people out of minivans or shooting VA nurses who are unarmed and are just there to help, and then applauding each other, or putting 7 holes in a woman with 5 bullets and thinking that is something to brag about. I'm not hypothesizing any of these things. All of these happen. In the case of the 5 shots and 7 holes, that might have been a CBP agent, but there are all these DHS thugs that descend on our streets and bully others and think that that's what makes a man, and it's not. It's just the opposite. And the real men I know look at that and instantly know that is, what's the word, that is compensating for something. They
Yeah.
are they're covering for some deep insecurities or deep psychological issues. I don't know, maybe their granddads didn't spend time with them, right? Maybe their parents didn't love them, but it stands out so obviously to me that that kind of behavior has nothing to do with real masculinity.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I'll give you my definition so that maybe you've got something to build around too. I've gotten this over time. I started this definition and it's really felt right throughout all the interviews so far. Is intelligent masculinity is the refusal to outsource accountability onto others and the discipline to live with the consequences of your values and actions. And you describe a lot of that, and you've been describing that throughout what you've been talking about, and you've gotten some really amazing feedback from some of the folks in our chat, so they really appreciate what you've been saying. One of the ones that I want to read this one from our friend Zupels is, I thought I respected Ken before this podcast, but it's given me a newfound respect for this man. And so I think that's the biggest gift this series is offering, is showing men for who they really are in so many good ways.
Nick, can I ask a boomer question?
Yeah.
Where's the chat?
Oh,
I would love to follow it.
Oh yeah, I sent in the private
Okay.
show here. I'll send it again for you.
Is it the Substack chat? Is that
Yeah,
where
the Substack chat.
got it. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
We don't
Okay.
really our YouTube chat and our Twitch. So we're streaming on YouTube and Twitch right now, and actually
Okay.
on TikTok too. Hey everyone, on all our other platforms, if you're here with us, smash the heart where you're at and send a comment. We do have a comment stream there, but I don't tend to show it because it's not as active. Our primary place is on Substack. But what you were talking about, I want to read, because I've written a couple articles about this, and I won't derail us really too far, but what you said fits exactly within my article that is the first of the Intelligent Masculinity series, called Masculinity and the Lie of Outsourced Accountability. And I'm just going to read this small section. Is when accountability disappears, violence does not arrive as an accident. It arrives as the central feature. This is why fragile masculinity thrives inside authoritarian systems. These systems do not require men to practice reflection, express empathy, or seek growth. Rather, they reward unthinking compliance while punishing moral consciousness. They offer men a mask, literal or symbolic, behind which harm can be committed without thought or ownership. The moment a man accepts that mask and allows himself to believe his actions are justified because someone else authorized them, his masculinity rots, becoming a hollow shell filled with hate and resentment. And that you describe that perfectly when you were talking about the ICE agents, about CBP and DHS and the culture that's in there. And Jen Budd has spoken about it a lot, and she has gotten a lot of attention recently on the investigations that she's been doing into ICE and CBP culture because she was part of it, and the disaster and the hate and the what it is really underneath.
Yeah.
And the Christian nationalism that has been sewn into it to become our brown shirts, our Hitler Youth is the CBP and DHS. We just didn't realize it. And they wear a literal mask to do what they do.
Yeah.
And whereas Ken's out here without a mask, exposing his face, talking about himself, expressing himself, he's being vulnerable and honest and authentic while he's doing it, and it works, and it shows people who he really is. He's not hiding behind anything. And so building that into the next question is, how do you intentionally model intelligent masculinity in your own life?
Well, I've only been thinking about intelligent masculinity for 5 minutes. I love your framing, but I do think more broadly about positive masculinity, because obviously with Valor Media, we're trying to bring together creators and influencers who reject the toxic notions of masculinity that have overtaken the so-called manosphere. Not a term I love, but everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say it. You know, the podcast bros, the Joe Rogans and the Andrew Tates, who have somehow convinced a significant chunk of a generation of young men that masculinity means beating up on the little guy, or objectifying and subjugating women. That is not what masculinity is at all, much less intelligent masculinity. And Nick, I would love to expound on some of your observations with one more, which is that at its core, toxic masculinity, the opposite of intelligent masculinity or positive masculinity, is about cowardice. And you can push insecurity and overcompensating and all of that into it. But I think if you frame it in terms of cowardice, it not only skewers the performative cosplay of the Pete Hegseths and the Mark Wayne Mullins, it allows viewers and fans and others to begin to see it when it crops up. And I'm thinking just in one instance of that picture of Mark Wayne Mullen, like the epitome of performative masculinity, standing up in a Senate hearing, right? Challenging the head of the Teamsters to fight, talking about being downrange on a mission so classified that he can't talk to senators about it. And yet there's that photo of him on January 6th, cowering behind the real men defending him and his colleagues. And I guess he's defending cushions, right? And benches. But he is not at the front of he is not at the tip of the spear. He is literally cowering. And that to me is a great picture of that fundamental truth about toxic masculinity, which is that it's about cowardice. And pick any one of them, right? Josh Hawley running for his life on January 6th. Joe Rogan talks a big game, but somehow sat out the longest wars in America's history. All of these guys, the entire Trump family, they talk about how tough they are, yet somehow every single one of them, as far as I know, like the first presidential family, at least in living memory, that doesn't have a single immediate family member with a connection to the military. That kind of performative masculinity at its core is about cowardice. One more thing, because I know I'm talking to a fellow vet, but I also want to make clear that bravery doesn't require you to join the military. The bravest people I know are actually nurses, right?
Mhm.
And I have specific examples of that. I know really, really brave teachers. So my context is military service, but I hope no one is taking that to mean that I think that's the only way to demonstrate positive masculinity.
Yeah, and I think that's really important is it's not a veteran thing. It's a human thing. Is
Yeah,
we all can show this and we all have really good examples that are outside of what we traditionally think of as the service for America. Being a teacher is a service too. Like being a teacher is a service to the nation, and they serve our country in so many ways. And there's a lot of bravery in a lot of teachers, in a lot of, like you said, nurses, so many other people. But yeah, we see bravery and courage from a veteran's point of view, from a war footing, or from however we've seen action, and it's much different when you're in person seeing some people do some really remarkable things
yeah.
compared to just hearing about it or pretending like these fake men do. And so one of the things too that I've noticed that and this is one of those where it's becoming very apparent how people on the right, specifically the technocrats and the billionaires who are just shitty, um, is we heard the other day from Mark Andreessen saying that empathy he rejects empathy or like self-reflection. He never does
Right.
it. He hates it. However, those who are intelligent in general, who are good humans in general, reflect. They self reflect all the time. Like it's a growing tool. And one of the things I've found for intelligent masculinity is reflection. Self reflection and self evaluation are really, really important because they allow us to see where we failed and where we succeeded and learn from them and what we can grow out of those. And because failures bring us a lot of opportunity for growth if we're willing to learn from it, and so does success if you're willing to just set maybe ego aside and evaluate what you did well and didn't do well during your success. And so, what do you use for tools, or how do you use self reflection and self evaluation to
Yeah.
make yourself to learn, to grow from what you've done?
Well, I think the most important thing that I have learned over time is to think a little more philosophically about what success is. Because the marketplace and our economy and capitalism writ large, in fact, so many domains of American society define success just so narrowly and myopically, short sightedly. And I'll give you a personal example. I mean, you can apply this to politics, you can apply this to business, you can apply this to academia. I, some people know, ran for Congress unsuccessfully, what feels like a lifetime ago. And my definition of success for for most of it was winning that race. I really wanted to win that race and I poured everything into it. But with time, I have come to see that we built something special in that district, a district that Donald Trump won by over 30 points. Members of my staff went on to do incredible things for leading politicians that everyone has heard of. And we fought back in an area where people thought there was no resistance. And I think in every area of your life, if you're willing to challenge typical notions or definitions of success, it can be really, really liberating. Success as a runner is not setting a world record. It's, you know, hitting your personal best. So I think that is the first realization that I've come to. Success is complicated. And when I see these, I guess, objectively successful people, objective in the traditional sense, I see them as complete failures in life. Someone like Elon Musk, who might be the richest man in the world, but has no friends, whose own kids despise him, whose legacy is going to be largely one of harm and destruction. That doesn't seem like a successful life to me. Or Peter Thiel, or Jeff Bezos, or these captains of industry. I think there might be something, as I'm saying this out loud, about American capitalism that rewards that really narrow definition of success at the expense of not just the society, but the successful people themselves. Elon Musk is going to die a lonely, unhappy person. I suspect Jeff Bezos and Peter Thiel will die as unlonely and as lonely and unhappy people. Look, I'm going to die way less wealthy than them, but I'm going to have people who love me around me, and that, to me, maybe that's the ultimate definition of success.
I love that. That reminds me of what Bobby Jones said. He said, "What you do in life, his his idea of success, or his goal in life, is to define the dash between the day of birth and the day of death, and what's in there, and what your legacy looks like." And you guys both define success in a really similar way, and it is way different than what these other guys do, what these billionaires do. Okay, we're running short on time, and I want to get Ken. We've got four super quick questions if we can get to them all. This is a lightning round, no wrong answer on them, and then we'll switch scenes real quick. And Ken, you can promote yourself and the work you do, and unabashedly get people to follow you. So here, four quick questions based on the Milans. I'll make a man out of you chorus line.
Okay.
First, what does it mean to be as swift as a coursing river?
All right, not a musical theater kid, so I'm gonna do my best. And this is in the context of Mulan, right? What does it
Nope,
mean to
in
be
the
as
context of life, in the context for
let,
you of what does
all
it
right,
mean?
let's come back to that one. This feels like a Rorschach.
Okay, how do you embody the force of a great typhoon?
Oh my God. I am impatient. I am hopelessly impatient. My kids will say it's both the worst and best thing about me. I'm always on the move. I have 10 things going on at once, and I can't sit still, which I need to learn to do sometimes. I'm actually taking my son hiking in the Grand Canyon next week. So
Nice.
hopefully there will be no signal and I'll be able to tune out for a bit. And for those watching, Bobby Jones, who you've referenced a couple times, is going to be behind the mic at the Ken Harbaugh show for a week. So check it out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Next, how are you as strong as a raging fire?
How am I as strong as a raging fire? Well, in spite of my impatience answer, I'm also really deliberative, right? I'm impatient, sort of in an active sense. I'll always like to move, but I think a lot. Sorry, what was the question? Strong as a
Strong as a raging fire.
I don't know if that implicates like pensiveness, but I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, I mean, I'm always thinking about things and finding outlets for them.
I love it. Final question before I have to let you go here is, how are you as mysterious as the dark side of the moon?
How I don't think I'm that mysterious. I do a weekly show now with Dean Blundell, which has been a lot of fun. We went to Greenland together to report on America's threats there, and been fast friends ever since. But he recently called me the most transparent person he's ever interviewed.
I
So
love that.
I don't know,
And he talks to
maybe
Lev
that's an
Parnas a
insult.
lot. So
Yes, he does.
that's an interesting compliment, because Lev is now talks about everything.
Yeah.
I love this, Ken. Thank you so much. And one final thing before you go, because I know you got a hard stop here, is how can people support your work? How can people find you
Oh,
and what you're doing?
thanks, Nick. The easiest way is the Ken Harbaugh Show on Substack. Everything we bring in there, if you want to be a paid subscriber, goes to support the show and our reporting trips. I do have another trip to Ukraine coming up, and I can't say much, but the interviews that I've got lined up are are extraordinary. And if you've seen some of my past ones, you'll know what a significant statement that is. Like, I am actually nervous about being in the company of some of these people. Nervous in a excited way. I mean, this is tough access to get. So that trip is coming up. Helping out at the Ken Harbaugh Show Substack will help support that trip, and of course, follow us on Midas Touch and the Valor Media Network and Blue Sky. Stay off Twitter if you can. I mean, I have to check it out once a week to see what is going on in the cesspool. But yeah, give us a follow, give us a like. Appreciate all the support.
Thanks, Ken, so much. I appreciate it. Good luck on your trip. Be as safe as you can. Be out there and be prepared. Yeah, Slava Ukraine, and
Arom Slava.
And thanks, Ken. I really appreciate you coming on with us today. Everyone, smash that heart one last time. I'll have the show out later, probably tomorrow, with the full recap of our discussion. And thanks, Ken. This has been wonderful. This has been an incredible Intelligent Masculinity episode. And as I like to say at the end of this now is, men, just suck less. That's all we want. You can also get the water bottle on shop.sickofthishitpublications.com. It's a nice sippy top metal water bottle, so you can subtly or not so subtly remind those around you to just suck less. Thanks, y'all. Have a great day. I'm Nick Paro, not your dad, joined by Ken Harbaugh for Intelligent Masculinity. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Nick. Bye.